Hey everyone, so tonight from our undisclosed location in the Midwest, Tabletop Bookshelf is bringing you another TTRPG flip through. This time I am super excited to be looking through the Wildsea from Mythworks, and this is by Felix Isaacs, as you can see here. This is beyond some of the books produced by some of the big names out there. This is the best indie role-playing game book, physical book, that I have been lucky enough to have in the shop. There are maybe one or two other ones that get close to it. I'm thinking of the Die RPG book. It sets a standard for what tabletop role-playing game books should look like. And this is the finest example that I've seen in recent memory. As you can see from this wonderful action forward cover here, you are taking adventures in a sea of leaves. You are part of a group that crews a ship that sails across the Wildsea, which is a sea of leaves. You are on top of these gigantic trees that have covered this world that something happened. Some magical disaster happened. A great hook, and let's just dive in, because this book really, first thing I want to talk about is that this is a landscape dimension book. You're not going to see very many books in general that are landscape, certainly not very many TTRPG books this is landscape, but kudos to them for taking that risk, and I would say it pays off. You'll see how they use that landscape to effect right here in the opening pages. One thing it does, it gives this incredible artwork that has interspersed throughout, and you'll see two types of artwork here. This kind of impressionistic art, perfect for leaves or a tree world. These bright splashes of color, and again, it's giving you a sense of the tone of the game. And then this is interspersed with more illustrative, I would say animation focused artwork. And so again, setting that tone of you are doing fantastical adventure, full of life and color and movement. Tells you some core concepts here and a little bit about the world. So again, and then here, this page is great because it really sets you up a key dynamic of this world, which is there is the upper world where there is the sky and the tops of the trees, and then you can sink down into the depths, getting deeper into the trees, maybe even to where the trunks are. And various things are within these different layers, and the deeper down you go, the weirder things can get. So that sets up a nice little way for whoever's running the game to play with this dynamic of mystery and danger, really at any time when you are in this sea of leaves. Here we go. So here's an example of that illustrative animation art style coming through next. This is setting up the kind of characters you're going to be playing in this game, and it is, there is a human over here on the side, but otherwise the creatures are much more fantastical, and there's not elves here, there's not dwarves. So again, it's setting up this world where we are going into a high fantasy, but it is a high fantasy world that you have never experienced before. A little bit more world building, how civilization works. Really what this part of it is, there's more world stuff at the end of the book, but what this is doing is it's really giving the players everything they need to know to build interesting characters in this weird world. Then it goes into mechanics, talks about the Firefly, who in this world, the GM or the DM is called a Firefly. This is a D6 system. It is somewhat similar to Blades in the Dark. A straight 6 is going to be a success. A 4 and a 5 is going to be a conflict, so a moderate success or a success with a complication of some sort. And then below that is going to be failure. And then if you get doubles, that's going to be a twist. So that's going to be a complication into the scene, regardless of whether it's a success or a failure. And those twists This system allows those twists to not just be dictated by the Firefly, the GM, but be dictated by whoever is playing the game. Another dynamic here is tracks. That plays a really important part in the game. It's similar to a clocks mechanic. Tracks allow for a couple more interesting things, like you can have these sort of milestones, like this track has sort of milestones across it, and you could do different kind of marks within the track. So these are all, marginal mechanical things, but they're a way to play with time. This is not a dungeon crawler, so you need some sort of way to visually represent how you are traveling through whatever problem space that your players are working through. And the tracks do a great job of that. They're very flexible. They're used not just for these world moments, but also for things like equipment. Talks a little bit about twists, complications, things that change the narrative. There's also the idea of a cut, which is something of a disadvantage, but it's really a way of trading difficulty. You can use it to trade difficulty for, let's say, impact or for precision. So let's say I'm taking a shot. No, I'm going to take a shot at their shoulder or their hand. Then you're going to say, I'm going to cut that. And what that means is your highest dice is going to be removed from your pool when you roll. So if you rolled a 5 and a 6, the 6 is going to go away. You're going to get the 5. You're only going to get a partial success. Talks a little bit about scenes, so kind of how you move through games, how you move through the world with your exploration, how you interact with different elements in play, and finally how combat works out. And combat here can be pretty crunchy. Lots of damage types, which is something. So this, I would say too, the cool thing about Wildsea is if you're looking for someone who wants a little bit crunch, is comfortable with the crunch of D&D, but wants something, is open to something thematically very different and mechanically different, but still wants crunch, this is a great choice. Montages, always a good part of the game. Journeys, how you are going through these waves of leaves. I think a great thing about this flip through is the artwork is stunning. This is just the highest quality illustration, and this character alone is so original, and there's so much depth and texture with what's going on here. And then you flip it again, and there is just another incredibly original, fantastical illustration. This tentacle arm based ship. So now we get to character backgrounds. There are edges, which are something of your main way that you approach things. So if you are approaching things through, let's say, grace, or grace is your edge, and you approach a conflict in a graceful way, you're going to add a d6 to your dice pool. And then there are skills. So these could be a little bit more, like cook. If you're cooking a meal, depending on your rank, you could add more dice pool there. There's a good set of skills here. Some are kind of specific, but a lot are a little bit more general. Gives you some flexibility with how you play those skills. Couple different languages. When you're talking about languages in a role-playing game, it's best when it's used as sort of a world building mechanism, and I think it does great effect here. Talks about the different languages and how they interact with the different species. Aspect is something that makes your character unique. It could be gear, it could be a companion, it could be a trait, but it's something that makes your character kind of stand out. Here's, again, wonderful examples of ways to make your character stand out and be special. Some ideas of what resources are and drives and how advancement happens here. So you can see that you have personal tracks. So advancement here is not like level based. You're going across personal tracks, and then you are getting boosts based on that. Character creation. So you start off picking a bloodline, which is, from D&D, it would be race or species. And there are humans, but it immediately gets weird, like the Ectus, which is a cactus, kind of a cactus-like creature. I want to play a cactus-like creature. There's the Gao, fungal creature. There's these Ironbound, which are these sort of remnants of magical energy held together in a sort of humanoid form, mechanical, partly mechanical. The Ketra, which have kind of, they are humanity that have been in the depths too long. They're a little bit more alien, have these tentacles going on, as you can see here. Mothrin, short-lived moth-like creatures, insect-like creatures. The Celicrae, I might be saying that wrong, but these are swarm-like creatures. So these are really just made up of a bunch of little arachnid who have a hive mind. So wildly different type of fantasy world. After that, you have your origin, which is something of your ancestry. This is a little bit more cultural, based on your geographic area, whether you were in, like, maybe you grew up on a piece of land, because there is some land within the Wildsea, some outcroppings. Maybe you were a little bit further, maybe you were part of a floating colony, like the Rootless here. Maybe you were high in the sky, like a Shankling, spending your time in the tops. After that, you pick a post, which it would be similar to a class. So example of that is Alchemist, and with that you get a choice of an aspect based on that. I think this is a wonderful example. The character pages are great examples of this landscape format being used to great effect, because you can get this full size image of your character, text alongside of it, and then you're getting into a 3-column format going here, which is just very easy to read, especially for these long lists, but you still get your one character all on one page, filling out that space with a nice little flavor text here. And it does that for each of these. So here's a Char, Corsair, Crash. What kind of a class is Crash, right? There are these illustrations to accommodate and help with the understanding of what these very different ideas of what a character could be or should be are. Hacker, Horizon-Year, lots of classes, right? Just lots of different options. Hunter, Mesmer, Navigator. Some of them make sense. Okay, I get it. Battle Hand, Screw, Slinger, Steep, Surgeon, Tempest. So you can see there's a good variation here too. Some are going to be more support. Some are going to be more combat focused. Some are going to be more magical, quote unquote magical. The magic in this world, which we haven't really talked about too much, is just it leans into weirdness. So just think of it that way. I am not super clear mechanically on how magic works here, but it is similar to an aspect. Lightning Call, you can direct bursts of energy through your palms or fingers. So that's like a spell, right? An aspect takes the place of a spell. After you pick your characters, you start with building your ship. And this is a great thing too. So it's bringing your characters together in a very logical way in this one ship that you get to build together, which I think is a fun thing to do as a play group. One podcast I listened to recommended actually starting with building the ship. And I think that could be a good move to make. You would have kind of a shared identity already around the ship that you built. Then you could build your characters. Think about what characters would fit into the ship. And your ships have, there's lots of different aspects of the ship design. So this can get really crunchy too. And you can have ship-to-ship combat. You also have your undercrew, which are your different officers or maybe gangs or or people who are within that. After that, talks about the Firefly's role. So, okay, if you're running the game, if you've gotten this far at 188 pages of this, I believe, almost 400-page book, let's talk about how to make this game running a little bit better. And I would say, too, that you don't want a new GM probably running the Wildsea. Well, this is true of any system. A more experienced GM is going to be better, but I think it's going to be helpful if the GM has experience with not just D&D, but other games, whether it's Powered by the Apocalypse or Blades in the Dark or other non-D20 systems or more story-forward games. A lot of this is really about the tone and what the Wildsea is trying to achieve. So this is really kind of a letter from Felix Isaacs telling the person running the game, look, this is really explicitly what I'm intending for this game to look like when it's played, or what things to aim for. And tips too. It's not just you should do this, but also how you can run this. How this is a toolbox, right? How to make sure that people get equal focus, because this game is really about spotlighting people and letting the characters shine. Really, all games should be about this, but this excels at it. How to use tracks, because they're such an important part of the system. How to use twists, tips on using that. So really tips for every different part of the game from the Firefly perspective. So you are going to have a lot of tools to work through that. And these are all the different pieces, the different layers of the Wildsea, and different things that can happen within. So this is already giving the GM kind of a high-level guidebook of, well, now these characters are floating through this world, flying through this world, sailing through this world. What is going to happen? This gives you tracks, ideas, locations, and it's all well laid out, gives you clear indication of what everything is. Really nice one here for the darkness under the eaves, because it can get weird down there. And then there's hazards. So your players in the Wildsea need to be butting up against different challenges, and this book again does not disappoint. There are a lot of pages here dedicated to weird and terrifying creatures. Look at this bird with all this eyes on it. And other strangeness. Swarms, insects, slugs, plants. This is a nice break again from a dungeon world where you are looking for, I think, creatures. The creatures for a game that has more of a dungeon crawling aspect are going to have certain look and feel to them. And when you are in a sea of leaves, they're going to have a much different form. And this book, again, expresses that tone shift and that setting shift very well in every illustration that is put forward in this book. Gives you ideas of some humanoid bandits or some villains, some reoccurring villains. Leviathans, which are these kind of gigantic creatures or forces to deal with. Like the Terrapex, a Leviathan, an ancient salvaged shelled behemoth. You can see here, look, that shell is salvaged. The Queen Beneath. Like, these are things like beating this big bad is probably the end of a mini campaign. And I would say too, this game is set up so you could do a one shot. It'd be great as a mini campaign. You could run it on run a 3 or 4 adventure, but I think it would also be great as sort of a 10 to 12 session campaign. I think that's a really good sweet spot for this game. Here's some great, more impressionistic art coming through here. And now we're getting to the section of the book that really talks about all these different settings. So there's quite a bit here. I think the next couple dozen pages are really dedicated to giving you details, rich details in this world. So you can dive right in. Your players can dive right in. And I think you could go through and just start mapping out locations. So you could say, all right, you have sailed into the ice, the Icterine. I may be saying that wrong again. The Icterine. You could start right in here, and it's going to give you lots of flavor, different territories, different features, different ports that are within this area that you are going to sail through. I bet if you read through this first, you could come up with, it's going to give you hooks in here. But you could easily latch onto one of those. And I think just from the details here, you probably have the building blocks of a couple adventures. Here's all these Firefly resources too. So it gives you an ideas of different trade goods that might be available, different hazards, different passengers. So remember, you are taking the ship too, so you're not going to be staying in one place. You could be your crew could be really great traders, transporters, and all of that is fodder for adventures. What kind of goods are you carrying? Who is that person that you are transporting? What is their backstory? Why are they running? And again, just more every section here, and we're going to just keep flipping through them for a while. Lots of details, lots of rich details, specific details about these places. So again, I'm going to circle on this map. Now you've gone to the Ambered Irons, or someone speaks of the Ambered Irons a week off that way, but you need to go there for some reason that's contained within here. You have all the details you need to run the game in that world, in that area. And it's going to feel full and rich because you're going to have this toolbox. So, again, another unique location. Lots of interesting people and places to explore. And terrible horrors to confront. More weird NPCs. And then finally getting to some table resources. So just for running the game, extra bonuses to make the game a little bit more exciting at the table. Always good to have. Way to expand the game. And also just to have that element say that this game is your own. You can change the rules a little bit, make it more to your liking or to up the adventure, whatever you feel is necessary. And that's it. Another great kind of terrifying impressionistic image and a character sheet and the ship sheet. Armor, speed, sails, saw, stealth, tilt. There's a lot of crunch in this game. You can really, I think, get deep into the combat here. And here we have our collection of creators here, their own wonderful images. And truly, to all these artists, just incredible work. An incredible book, an achievement. Thank you. Thank you to Mythworks, and thank you to Felix Isaacs for giving the world this incredible game and this best in class book. If you want to tell a story, you want to tell a high fantasy story, but you are ready to move on from dragons and dungeons and elves and dwarves, but you still want that spirit of high adventure and thrilling action then you got to check out the Wildsea. You are given all the tools you need with this incredible book filled with these evocative illustrations, give you a clear sense of the tone and direction of the stories that you could build, that you may want to build, and the stories you may want to tell, and the weird characters you may want to play, and the exciting, strange, weird adventures that can take place in the rustling tops of the Wildsea. If you like what we're doing here, this book is available at Tabletop Bookshelf. I'll have a discount code down below. But if you like what we're doing here, what is Tabletop Bookshelf? We are an independent online bookstore, and we work directly with all of these independent publishers and creators and distributors who work with them to bring all of this work together into one place for you to explore and enjoy. And so check us out. Check us out in the shop. Check us out on any of the social media channels. Check out some more of our videos. And I hope you get a chance to go sailing in the Wildsea soon.